please.
Okay, so thank you. Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So I want to share my slides before I, sorry. Okay. So, so thank you so much, everyone. And it's a privilege that I have to be part of this discussion this afternoon. I'm in Ghana, and so I don't know the time we are in. People are joining from various parts, so it's a privilege. And thank you and congratulations to Professor Juma on this occasion. This is an event or gathering that Nigerian scholar, Professor Adedeji will have described as Pax Africana, meaning that a gathering whereby Africans assemble to discuss their own problem and finding solution inward, whereby we look inward for our solutions. And I think this kind of initiative is well applauded. We need more of this. And we need to be looking inward in terms of how do we solve African problem. I mean, over the past 2 decades, we've tried this sort of external interventions. I don't see in any part of Africa that these are solve any problem, but so how do we use both the knowledge that is emerging from the global south, blending this with our own indigenous and local knowledge to actually deliver development, and that's quite critical. So in the discussion today, I would be looking and discussing promise the emerging technologies hold for African transformation. And one of the key ones I will be discussing is AI, but I will expand more on this. My discussion would be 2 parts, looking at, as a researcher, some of the issues in these aspects, some of the challenges, and some of the progress also that we, as a continent, we are making. But more importantly, I would talk about opportunities that people on this call can tap into, because it's not just about the problems, but the opportunities. There is fundings that are now present that I think researchers, institutions can tap into. So I will be talking about some of those that are involved, that I encourage people on this call to try and in a way, in the context of this discussion, looking inward and Africans solving their problem. So with that, I move to the main discussion. So as a background, a key issue is digitalization the new fad or the new normal for Africa? I mean, we've seen over the last 3 decades, everything that is coming on board, there's always suggestion that this is the new thing, this is what would actually reform Africa. But most of this has not delivered. So the question is digitalization going to be the one that would deliver it or not? And my conversation is looking at the future of Africa and the future of the world. Yes, digitalization will play a role, because already, if we see developed countries, we're already seeing that they are gravitating towards this trend whereby digitalization is affecting every facet of their lives, social, political, economic. And so it is incumbent that we will see these dynamics taking place in Africa. But the problem or the issue is, how will this solve African problem? It's about how we actually response, how we embrace this. So looking across the continents, I mean, there's a spark of optimism that digitalization is going to be key. And why is this the key? We're seeing a lot of development in internet connection. But more importantly, we are seeing entry of this new technology like the artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain technologies, drone logistics, robotics, digital identity system, and smart city. All of them, we are seeing pocket of this in Africa. Also, one of the issue around government that the digitalization promised to deliver upon is the issue around the government revenue collection and incumbent corruptions. We know, I mean, from studies that well-documented fiscal reforms in Africa, most countries that have been able to elevate their revenue greater digitalization or deployment of these tools can indeed help in a lot of areas. So what are the kind of hello? Hello, please, can you see my slide? Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes, now
yes,
we can see the slide.
Oh, thank you, and sorry about the internet cutoff. Okay, so what are the kind of dynamics pushing what we're seeing in digitalization in Africa? So here I presented from work I've been doing around trying to measure and track digitalizations in Africa. And this is an index we worked on, we call Digital Preparedness Index. What does this mean? And it's about what are the, we look at what are the 4 components that for you to benefit from digitalization that needs to be present. We need a robust economy because digitalization is either going to directly or indirectly affect the economy. So it can create new sectors, but it has to actually transform the existing sector. So the state of the economy will matter, the level of infrastructure like energy, like the past speakers just mentioned in terms of energy connection and energy poverty. What are the state of governance and institutions? So we look at these various components, and what we come up with is this digital preparedness. Which country is more likely to actually benefit from digitalization? And this actually speaks to where the countries are, and as such, when we have more digitalization, who is likely to benefit? And the result is actually remarkable. We see a lot of variations across the continent. Countries like Mauritius, South Africa, Seychelles, Morocco are the top of this measurement in terms of digital preparedness. And we have countries like Chad at the next point. The 2 points I want to make out of this is this. We are seeing a lot of variations across countries. And the implication of that is Africa, even though, I mean, a lot of weak development, parity in per capita income. And we're seeing that countries that are doing better in terms of digital preparedness are also the countries that are doing well in terms of per capita income. The implication is that we are going to have what sociologists call a Matthew effect, which is the rich becoming richer and the poor becoming poorer. So, which means if this existing kind of disparities, if digitalization comes in place, the benefit could accrue to countries already doing well, further leaving behind those that are not doing well. So at country level, at regional level, I think interrogation of digitalization has to have that dimension in terms of not just how does it affect us, but how does it address our structural issues? Because what we have seen in recent times with insecurity and other sort of thing is that structural inequalities and poverty, they tend to actually metamorphose into different problems. We are seeing that in insecurity in the Chad region and the rest. So we need to address, use digitalization to address structural inequality and structural challenges. But one positive thing to also note in this data is small is beautiful. I mean, big countries like say Nigeria, Ethiopia, the 2 most populous countries, you can see they are in the bottom bar. So it doesn't necessarily mean that in terms of potentials, it's not about the size, it's about government preparedness. And that shows to us that there is a lot that we need to do at the domestic level in order to address the challenges in digitalization, or in order to address the benefit the potentials from that. Again, I'm trying here to demonstrate to you some of the kind of trends in digitalization across the continent. And we can see this has been growing. In fact, prediction shows that by 2030, the continent might be might be at parity with the rest of the world. In terms of one good thing is have been promoted by these big platform institutions with a lot of their innovations, but also we are seeing a lot of domestic kind of interventions that also happen in
Yeah, I don't know whether we have lost.
We've lost him.
Yeah. We are just experiencing what I was saying a few minutes ago. The problem of access to accessibility to internet is a big issue in Africa, and if you want to conduct good research and teaching, online teachings and so on, it's we always have this issue. So, yeah.
John, do you want to move to the next speaker? Or,
Yes, I'm trying to find out where we can get here. The challenges of infrastructure in Africa. I think it's trying to reconnect. It's trying to get back. We give him just a few seconds.
Okay. Because then from there we go to the panel to the discussions.
Let me suggest that that we don't have fortunate yet. It's not with us, and we've lost Adedeji. Let me propose that in a short while we move to the panel discussion. We have questions for Daniel, but before we do that, let me recognize the presence of Ms. Alison Field Juma. Alison is the president of the Calestus Juma Legacy Foundation and Calestus House. She joined us from Boston, the US. Alison, welcome. So let us now move to our panel discussion. We have only one person for questions too, but I recommend that we engage in an interactive discussion. Daniel raised a number of issues in his presentation. I see our colleague is rejoining. I think it still has connectivity issues. He is out again, dropped off. Let us have some discussions now on Daniel's presentation. I want to invite questions, comments, issues. Let us have some interactive discussions on the very rich presentation by Daniel. Any questions, comments?
So Tom has a question.
Yeah, can I continue?
Yes, please.
Yeah, mine is just to provoke all of us and just as a way of starting up the discussion. I think Daniel made a very, very useful presentation. I liked the slide that was showing how much which countries are spending on R&D. And we could see we are still below
0.5%.
Below the 1% that is squared. And I think the big argument that I keep on hearing from policymakers is that, look, our countries are still developing, we are poor, and that is why we cannot be able to spend so much like other countries are doing. And yet, the reverse is also true, that without spending on R&D, we cannot be able to move countries out of poverty, because then R&D has, investing in R&D has huge potential in addressing some of the challenges that are keeping us backward in terms of development. So in your view, Daniel, how do we go about addressing that misconception that most policymakers have with regard to investing in R&D?
And I was just giving the example of China. China, if there was, somebody sent me a video of ranking of countries up to, let me say 1996, where China was not among the first 20 countries when it comes to GDP and so on, and development. And then if you see the development of China, how China started putting money in research and development, and also sending their scholars abroad to acquire knowledge and come back. And we can see the change where China is nowadays. And many Chinese universities are even topping the American-based universities. And I want to give an example. I worked myself with one Chinese scholar who was at Massachusetts University in the US. We collaborated in the field of organic photovoltaics. And after his PhD postdoc, the Chinese government called him in Beijing. He has one of the biggest labs there. And this is a guy who is always bringing state-of-the-art efficiency in organic photovoltaics, and the best papers coming from his laboratory, because he's well equipped in Beijing, even more than in the US, and he can do excellent work. And I believe, I'm so convinced, if our government just do what they pledge, just that 1%, things will change. But as I'm saying, I'm talking to the new generation, and I've made this talk many times. I hope the new generation who are listening, who one day are our leaders in Africa, would have this consciousness, this awareness, we need to do something in R&D. I was talking about France, that France, the output, innovation publication, innovation comes from migrants, most of them from sub-Saharan Africa and North Africa. Why? Because they have the facilities to carry out high quality research. Why can't we have the same in our universities? And that's why I'm pledging to say, if we cannot equip all the universities equally, let's try to see how we can intensify collaboration by creating such platform where a student or a researcher can go to the platform and say, in my country or in my university, I'm not able to carry out this specific investigation, but going to the platform, I can see in Kenya, this university offers that possibility. Then intensive collaboration will be going on within the African continent with let me say, little funding. But it will not change the fact that our government should do that step. We spend on unnecessary things. I'm not against military. We need to defend our countries, but we spend on such things like military but when it comes to education, research and development, very little is spent. And in this digital world, those who are advancing would advance more. And if Africa doesn't do anything, we always experience what we are experiencing now, that somebody from Nigeria wants to give a lecture, but because of poor internet, or it might be also the thing happened because electricity went off, which is a case for those who've been visiting. I've visited Nigeria and experiencing at the airport and hotel and at the university, that it was constant electricity cut. The same thing in Cameroon. I don't want to blame only Nigeria. There are many African countries having the same issue. So if we have this, if we cannot try to solve these problems, where are we heading to? We cannot be. The African continent, we are not cursed. Africans are excelling. Even the Professor Callistus was in Harvard. He did wonderful research there. He had that opportunity there to do such research. He could do it also in Africa. We need to do our homework. Our African leaders need to do their homework and give the possibility for young African researchers. Many have the desire, they are hungry to do high quality research in their countries than going abroad. I thank institutions who are supporting foreign institutions, but this is not the final solution. The African government should do their homework. They should do their homework. And I hope if there's any person who is linked to any person in the government in any country here in Africa, please speak to those guys in the government. And at the African Union level, there should be an emphasis. And I don't know, the African Union should talk to the African government. Please keep your pledge. They've made a pledge, but no one has done it so far. There's no one African country, even South Africa, which is putting 1%. Although South Africa is developed, the universities there are better equipped than most, like at least they have almost some sort of, let me say, European standard. But even South Africa has not succeeded to put 1% of its GDP. So you see where we are. And the countries which are the other countries like South Korea, who are above 3%, Israel 4%, they are the country of innovation. It's nothing. We are not less intelligent than other people from other part of the world. Just give us the tools. And the secondly, what I was saying, let's trust our graduates and give them the possibility, if they come out, give them the possibility to put in practice what they've learned. And that's what I was talking about, making mistakes. Allow us to do mistakes and learn from our mistakes. Okay.
There are questions for you in the chat. I'm not going to read all of them, but there is a question on why African countries are blocked from acquiring new technologies by intellectual property treaties. And Andrew, who is posing the question, states that China first acquired new technologies and then subscribed to international, to intellectual property treaties. I don't know whether you want to respond to that question. Then Elizabeth is posing a question: should the African governments promote solar energy use by subsidizing solar installation by African communities? If you want to answer those two.
I'll answer the second question when it comes to, the second question concerning solar energy or renewable energy in general. I was making one statement that due to many, let me take the European countries have problem to go to undergo the energy transition, but Africa, we are still in quote virgin. So we have the possibility to adapt renewable energy in our to meet our energy needs. So she's right. The African governments should do subsidies in importing goods, but why can't we produce the goods ourselves? Okay, we have the manpower. We have a youth which is looking for jobs. Why can't we create solar industry in Africa to produce solar panels and so on? So just as China did. Before, it was Germany leading and the technology was transferred to China. China are the one producing for all over the world now. So Africa, the future is Africa, because I think the wages now are increasing in China. So most of the industries are looking for countries with low wages. I think some African countries can offer this possibility of producing at relative low cost. I'm not saying that we should work for very low salary, but Africa has the potential of producing, but for that we need to train skills, and that's where funding for education and research and development is necessary. Yeah, that's what I would say. I agree with her. Subsidies can be done, but in addition to subsidies, let's look ways of producing the technology on the spot.
Daniel, do you want to respond to this issue of intellectual property?
No, somebody else can respond. I think.
Prof, can I try?
Yeah.
Can I
yes,
try?
Please.
Yes, it looks like the question is suggesting without access to IP that is already in place, then we cannot access technologies. And China had to negotiate through series of treaties, then to be able to access some of these IPs. But IP, going through existing IP, of course, definitely is one route. But what about new technologies that Africans themselves, then individual Africans themselves, are conceiving and developing, that may probably require just a bit of the existing IP or may not require at all? Because IP is only in place if they say that what you have created is an inventive step and is novel. But there are many areas that indigenous Africans are also having ability to develop new technology without having to go through the route of existing IPs. What are we doing about that? So even as we think about negotiating and around the obstacles of existing IPs, but what about appropriate technologies that indigenous Africans can conceive? So that implies, therefore, the truth of the matter is that we are not reserving enough resources to research and development. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenge. Let me just give you what I think would be.
Professor Shem Wandiga wants to say something. I think he raised his hand.
Okay. Okay, Shem, please. Unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman and ladies and gentlemen. Mine is a plea that we do not make this conference or seminar a blame game. We are so often blaming ourselves, blaming our governments for not doing this or for doing that and what have you. I think we can do better than that. I think I developed my laboratory without my government assisting me. And it is one of the top-notch laboratories in Kenya. And I did it through collaboration with partners, both within and without. And we have been able to train our students in all fields of chemistry that we desire. So let us look at what we can do better. Are we collaborating enough? Not all the enemies we are perceiving are against us. There are some who are willing to support us much more than we are attributing at this meeting. So please, let us see where we are and where we want to go and how we can objectively improve the situation.
Thank you, Professor Wandiga. I see Adedeji's hand is up.
Okay, thank you, and apologies to everyone for my network. I think it's, sorry, I must say. So I just want to make some interventions relating to my presentation, but also related to what Professor Shan just highlighted in terms of progress. I mean, how do what are the kind of thinking we need to do going forward? And I want to emphasize that we cannot underplay the role of regional efforts, whereby we need to work at the regional level. One of the key emerging trends in this digital platform and in this platform institution is the economic of scale and the economic of scope. And the implication is that, I mean, for you to effectively, so let's look at AI, for you to train the algorithm sufficiently, you need this huge set of data. And when we look at African continent, we might at individual, I mean, when you remove Nigeria, Ethiopia, and all these big population countries, most countries have very small markets, small population to really effectively achieve that scale. So working at the regional level is crucial in terms of solution we need to actually achieve our goals in this area, which means, for example, look at mobile technology. Africa actually are now like the pioneer in this kind of using this phone app to implement solutions like in fintech industry and the rest. Why can't we replicate this? So I think how we exchange this local knowledge, how we ensure that even within our own boundary, I mean African boundary, there is this ability to have information flow, idea flow is crucial. The issue of cross-border data flow is an issue in Africa. I mean, I've spoken with a lot of organizations, and I mean, increasingly we are seeing some laws that are restricting this kind of flows of information that is integral to the development of institutions, I mean, development of this local technology. So local digital entrepreneurs, they will play a role in this. And it is an ability to actually tap into the economics of this that will matter. And it is about the population, it is about the market. And so when we open up, someone working in Zambia, doesn't look at the population of Zambia. It looks at the population of Southern African-wide problem, because he can enter and there is this free entry of his ideas into these various settings. So reducing barriers within and among ourselves is very critical. The other point I want to mention is collaborations. I mean, it's just part of that. I mean, we need to collaborate more. Academics, like a lot of people have spoken in terms of these ideas emerging from academics. Are we really effectively speaking with industry? Are we speaking effectively with government? I think it's kind of crucial things we need to do. One of the ideas, I think I share my slide. I urge everybody to look at it. On the last slide, you see what I dropped 2 links. It's a new call that I'm part of the board, and what it's all about is an initiative to actually build this kind of collaboration. So providing funds for institutions that are interested in coming together to speak to themselves, such that we are not just in isolation around this development and the data governance and digitalization in Africa. So I think innovations and